2, we are all set.
Good evening. The planning board is now in session, July 13th, 2020. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 30A 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at https://www.southboroughtown.com/.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting or participate in the public hearing may do so in the following manner, which is https://www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. We'll now move to the first item on the agenda. Karina.
All right, first item on the agenda is the Master Plan Committee update. And before I hand it over to Mimi, I just wanted to give a brief update on some of the administrative things. As you recall, at the last planning board meeting, we revised the charge for the Master Plan Committee, and there were some questions from the town clerk's office to town council regarding ex officios and representatives and such. So the bottom line is town council opined that the charge that we had submitted in a revised version was acceptable in format, and so it was filed with the town clerk appropriately. So we're in good shape with that. The master plan charge was changed to reduce the quorum and create a couple more ex officio, or modify some of the seats to ex officio. So that worked out. And in the interim, we also have a new member who wants to be appointed, or a person who wants to be appointed as a new member from the Municipal Technology Committee. His name is Will Warren. And so at some point during this piece of the agenda, the planning board needs to discuss and appoint and vote to appoint him or not to the master plan. So
Thank you.
Mimi,
Any questions or comments? Mr. Mills. Need a motion to appoint.
I make a motion to appoint said representative.
Will Warren.
Will Warren.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Very good. Next item on the agenda. Karina.
Does Mimi, do you have anything to add for the master plan update?
Well, just the update that the Master Plan Committee met on July 1st, and we did an in-depth review of the visioning statement, which we received from MAPC on June 17th. In general, the committee felt the statement didn't capture Southborough's uniqueness and therefore didn't really communicate our distinctive story. So Sarah and Judith will be incorporating the comments from the Master Plan Committee, and we'll hopefully have another draft document for our July 29th meeting. And as always, I welcome any comments from any planning board members or anyone in the public can email me. And I would also like to thank our former members for their insightful input and welcome our new members and look forward to their valuable contributions.
Very good. Mimi, this is starting to be a long road you're traveling down. Just sticking with it and keeping your head down and moving along forward. Really appreciate it. Excellent work.
Thanks. I anticipate that the hard part is over with. It should get easier from here.
The next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is a application for major site plan approval for 7 Chestnut Hill Road. It's a barn project. It's actually the old barn that was deconstructed from Deerfoot Road property that was sold, and the
Let's
trustees, we have to read the legal.
read the public hearing notice.
Yes. All right, so public hearing notice. Major site plan approval, 7 Chestnut Hill Road, Assessors Map 62, Parcel 4, per Section 17410 of the Southborough Zoning Code. The Planning Board of the Town of Southborough shall hold a public hearing on Monday, July 13th, 2020 at 7:05 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting to consider the application of the trustees of the reservations regarding the property located at 7 Chestnut Hill Road for major site plan approval. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing limitations on in-person gatherings, there will be no in-person attendance by the public persons wishing to participate in this meeting while in progress may do so by going online to https://www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. These hearings concern a proposal to reconstruct a salvage barn on the property with installation of a septic system and utilities. The project also includes updates to handicap accessibility, small modification to existing parking, and updates to site lighting. Copy of the plans and application may be reviewed on the Planning Board's webpage, https://www.southboroughtown.com/planning board. Donald C. Morris, Chair, Planning Board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Give us the background. What's led up to tonight's hearing?
Sure. So back in February of 2020, the proponent had an informal meeting with the planning department. We reviewed the application so that it would be complete for submission. The applicant and their team, so the trustees of reservations, hired DGT Associates as their engineering firm to assist. And on March 5th, 2020, they provided submission number 1 with plans dated March 5th, 2020, and stormwater calculations dated March 5th, 2020. On March 16th, we requested some supplemental information regarding some fixes to the application and a certificate of authority for the trustee's signature on the application, the person who signed that. Then, as you know, that was right when the coronavirus pandemic started to hit the municipal services, and the process was stayed by the planning board. So we did not file the application until June 22nd with the town clerk so that we could get things moving ahead. We learned the process of how to Zoom video, and at a point we got comfortable. We wanted to make sure that we could have decent access to the meetings. Then the application was received, distributed to Fuss and O'Neill and the town departments, as well as to the planning board members. The legal ad was posted in the newspaper and was published on June 29th and July 6th for a public hearing opening this evening on July 13th. The legal ad was provided to the applicant, who submitted it to the abutters on the certified abutters list. We received green cards and white mailing receipts for the abutters. The planning department also mailed out the letters, the legal notice to the towns and agencies as required. On Friday, we received a review of this submission from Fuss and O'Neill, a draft in order to give us some information. And then today we were provided an updated draft that was a finalized draft. which was submitted to planning board, the applicant. We also received comments from the fire department on June 25th, which were posted on the website as well as under the public hearing notice area of the planning board website. The applicant also submitted for a stormwater management permit to conservation, which was heard on July 9th, last Thursday, at which they were approved. And that brings us to this evening, the opening of the public hearing for the project. We do have attendees in the waiting room for presentation of their plans, and with us waiting to be upgraded onto the panel is Bob Murray with the Trustees of Reservation. We also have Bert Corey, who represents DGT Associates, the engineering surveying company that's preparing the plans. So Dawn, back to you.
Very good. Any questions or comments at this point before we ask the proponent to present? Seeing none?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Stein.
Yeah, just want to disclose that we're members of the CSA. So we get vegetables and stuff from there. So if anybody has, is concerned about a apparent conflict, I don't see any conflict, but if any of the fellow board members of the public feel I should recuse, just let me know. That's it, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I'm also a member of the CSA and of the trustees, but I don't think that poses a conflict, and I can rule in an unbiased manner.
So I agree, but could you just tell us and the public what that membership consists of?
So in our case, we get produce from the proponent once a week, various types of vegetables, sometimes ice cream if I pick it up.
That you pay for.
That's correct. Yes, I'm financially, a client, but I'm not, financially in partnership with the proponent in any way, and I feel that I can, participate on a fair and unbiased basis.
Mr. Chairman, I also get vegetables once a week, but I do not pick up ice cream, paid for or not.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we go to, is it Mr. Murray?
Yes, Bob Murray is with the Trustees of Reservations. I just want to explain that DA Hayden recently was incapacitated with some surgery for her knee, so she's not able to attend, and she let us know that we're in good hands with Bob Murray and Bert Corey.
Well, good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Bob Murray. I'm with the Trustees of Reservations. I serve as a project manager for them. With me is Bert Corey from DGT, and also Francis, who is our stewardship manager. So we would just like to say we're very grateful for this opportunity to be before you. This has been sort of uncertain times, and we greatly appreciate, under these unique circumstances, the ability to move this forward. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Our work at Chestnut Hill Farm is really part of our overall strategic plan as an organization, where we're trying to elevate the agricultural experiences. We feel there are unique opportunities among our farm properties to engage people in a deep and more meaningful way, fostering a better understanding and appreciation for the local farms and how they can be a community resource, a source for farm fresh food, preserving traditional land use and the overall character of the community, but also offering a variety of farm-based programs and experiences that allows for this deeper connection to a variety of audiences. So we're very excited about this opportunity, particularly with the historic barn from Deerfoot Road. The timber frame has been restored and is waiting to be sort of erected on our site and to really help preserve some of Southborough's agricultural legacy in sort of the next phase of its life. So we're very excited about that. And we've been using a tent for our engagement programming, and that has been somewhat limited in what we can do. It's very weather dependent. So we see that this enclosed building will really provide new opportunities for us, and we'll be able to provide some basic amenities that we hope will help enhance the visitor experiences and encourage longer stays on the property. So what I'd like to do is just highlight some of the key elements of the plan. And
Bob, can I interrupt for 1 second? Would
Sure.
you like Mike Francis elevated to the panelist level?
Yes,
so he
please.
can participate?
he would be able to answer any questions you may have as well.
Sarah, do you see him in the attendees? Mike Francis?
Yes, I do now.
Okay. And then also Bob, will Bob be sharing the screen, or are you going to do that, Sarah?
I'm prepared to do that, but if you know, if the speaker wants to drive, I mean, that makes a lot of sense too. So either way.
Bob, are you prepared to share your screen with the plans?
I am not. I would appreciate the help. So,
Alrighty,
Okay, then.
all set. Just give me 1 second here.
Bear with us. Sometimes the upload is a little bit slower because when we work out of our home, where the VPN connection takes a little bit longer to launch the file.
Bob,
yes,
is this the first time that you've done a site plan on Zoom?
yes, it is.
It's our first time too, so
That's reassuring. Thank you.
yeah,
Mhm.
we'll see if we can make it work. I was hoping you'd say, no, you've done several of these, but I guess everything is new now, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. All set, should be coming through. Can everybody see?
It's starting to share, Sarah.
Okay.
It has started sharing.
All right.
It's probably a decent sized file.
Yes.
So it's about 6 megabytes. So it might take a little bit.
Karina, if you would like, I could begin sort of our presentation, and then I think Bert
Sure.
could answer a lot of the technical questions and might be benefited more from the plan than my opening remarks here.
Absolutely.
I can also try to share my screen too. I have the drawings up on my computer, so if that helps, I don't know.
Oh, that's you, Bert, right?
Yes, it is.
Calling in with the phone. All right,
Yeah,
let's see. Give it a second. Nothing yet, Sarah.
I'm actually very happy to hear that you can hear me, because at the Conservation Commission hearing that we had last Thursday, my audio was not working. So evidently I got it working now.
Okay, good. Are you also called in with your phone?
No, I'm not called in with the phone. I'm on the computer.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. Sarah, the recording stopped.
It looks like she's off.
Okay, she'll be back.
Yeah.
So Dawn, you are currently a co-host? Can you hear me, Dawn? So you're
Yeah.
currently a co-host. All right. Bear with us. We'll get this going. It's me.
Well, if Bob thinks that he can start without,
Sure.
then why don't we,
Okay, it's recording again. We just had to wait for the recording to start again. So it shut off the recording and now it picked it up again. All right, just give Sarah a chance. Yeah,
I think we should let Bert share if he can.
yeah.
Let me give that
Bert,
a shot. Let me give that
Yeah.
a shot right now.
okay. There we go.
This is the overall view. It's a fairly large site. It's 108 acres. So I think people are somewhat familiar with this site, but I'll let Bob talk through it. And Bob, if you start saying a particular
Okay.
areas, then I can try to point to whichever area you're talking about.
Well, I think this is a good screen to start on.
Yes.
So the new barn that we're proposing for the site is really 1,900 square feet. The footprint of the old barn is about 1,200 square feet, and we're looking at a 700 square foot lean-to addition on the south side of the building. The addition will have a public restroom and an office. So we're looking at a new septic system to be installed to support the building, and the Board of Health has approved our plans for that. We also have plans to remove two of the existing buildings on the site. One is an old tool shed right about where Bert is pointing, and then further down was the old goat barn. Both of these buildings are in poor condition and no longer really serve the useful needs of the property. The placement of the barn on the site was very deliberate. We're introducing a new structure that will be in keeping with the general character of the farm. We're clustering the buildings to help preserve the iconic views across the fields. And there's a symbiotic relationship between the engagement barn and the existing CSA and farm stand. So they will both be sort of our public face to the people, and so they needed to be in close proximity to each other. We hope to have sort of a courtyard space between those two buildings that people can spill out to and gather. We have presented this overall plan to the Conservation Commission that holds the CR on the property last fall, and they have approved this, that it is consistent with the general purpose of the conservation restriction in line with those restrictions. We've made some minor adjustments to the two parking lots, really trying to reconfigure them just slightly so that they meet the dimensional requirements. And then we've added on the southern one, two new ADA parking spaces to that. We've also supported a brand new universal trail from the parking area to the barn and retail area. And have put also in terms of parking, sort of the back of the house on the southern end of the farmstead there, we have 6 additional spaces that we've delineated within the sort of back of the house, not open to the public for staff use. And let's see, we've got some minimal landscape lighting to help just provide, most of our programming is not at night, but there are some transitions at the end of the event. And so there's some night compliant, dark sky compliant lighting fixtures, bollards sort of along the pathway. And we're providing some new sort of drainage swales to help mitigate the stormwater, and as mentioned, the Conservation Commission has approved our stormwater management permit last Thursday. So that's kind of the bigger overview, and if there's any more specific details, or Bert, if you want to touch on some of the details of the plans. Otherwise, we can also take questions if that's more efficient.
I don't mind going through a little bit more of the details.
Please do that.
Okay. So the screen that I'm sharing right now is just an enlargement of the overview that we were looking at earlier. So here's the barn that Bob was just discussing. Here's the handicap accessible walkway that goes along an existing pathway that the tractor uses today, but they won't be using that in the future. Heading out to this small parking area. Right now, it's an existing gravel parking area. I'm just trying to go along the outline of this gravel area. What we're doing is essentially almost reconfiguring it, making it a little bit smaller. We're actually reducing it by about 700 square feet. And then using the dimensional regulations, we're setting the parking spaces as someone would be pulling in there. We also looked at trying to adjust some of the minor grading out at the entrance to this now. In today's rainstorm, some of the rain can run down this swale and through here, get to the opening, and then start running across this gravel parking area. So what we're proposing is just to do a slight berm in this area, just to keep that water from running across the gravel parking area. The water that does run across the gravel parking area, we're proposing a riprap lined swale. It's about 6 feet wide, only about 4 inches deep. I mean, it's something that vehicles could actually pass over it if they needed to pass over it. But the purpose of that is really to just trap any kind of, sediment that could come off of the gravel parking area. The gravel parking area exists today. We really don't see a lot of erosion on the side of the area right now, as well as sediment. So this is more of just precautionary. It allows us to see any sediment that could be building up. It would also prevent any type of rutting because in this area here, we're proposing some overflow parking on the grass area. And if any cars started traveling across this, we could start producing some ruts. So we put that in just as a kind of a preventative way of just getting some rutting in through here. Let's see, moving to the north a little further. Oops, sorry. This is also an existing gravel / dirt parking area today. This is the Trailhead Entrance for some of the trails that head out over the farm area. Again, we're just proposing to modify this area. We actually have to make this slightly larger. And when I say slightly, it's the additional 1,800 square feet of impervious area. But we need to do that in order to meet the dimensional standards for parking. And while we're doing that, I mean, because we are increasing the amount of gravel parking area, we're proposing a sediment forebay here. Actually, we're not really trying to change too much of the grades. We're trying to keep it as it is. This happens to be the low area in there anyway. So what we're doing is we're going to allow the water to come down. We'll pass it through a sediment forebay for pre-treatment and then into a wet swale. Where there's a little bit more detention. It also allows some infiltration. And it provides a certain amount of water quality. This isn't a paved surface, it's still a gravel surface, but it's still a benefit, still improving the existing conditions. The reason why we're not going with really deep structures here and infiltration structures in this general area, as well as the other parking area, is the groundwater table is relatively high. We've got a lot of testing throughout this area and through here, and we've seen the groundwater table anywhere from 15 inches below grade to 3 feet below grade, based on modeling, based on water that's been weeping into the deep observation holes, as well as standing water. So we know we have a relatively high groundwater table in that area. So we're just trying to do what we can to try to incorporate some infiltration. Also, too, as part of like a low impact development standpoint, we have a large grass area here that ultimately goes into a farm field. that ultimately goes into a larger farm field that ultimately then travels down towards Route 30. There's about 2,000 linear feet of travel distance between this area and where it would actually pass under Route 30. When we modeled this hydraulically, we found that there'd be a slight increase in the peak flows, but there'd be a reduction in the volume. But that increase in the peak flow is it really held onto the site. It's in its own ponding areas. There's some small depressions in this area. I say small, but they're wide and shallow and expansive in this area. You would see that if you were standing in like this general area. For the roof of the barn area, we are on higher ground up here where all of the houses and the outbuildings and the barn facility is proposed, and where the septic system is also proposed. We had a test pit just in this general area here, so we are proposing to infiltrate the roof runoff into the ground through a 15-inch perforated HDPE pipe surrounded with stone. That meets the recharge requirements for that, as well as the water quality volume. As Bob already mentioned, the septic system has been approved by the Board of Health. In total, when we look at everything going on in this site, on balance, if we're just looking at rough numbers, we have an increase in impervious cover, meaning roof, of about 500 square feet. And we have an increase in the gravel parking area by 1,100 square feet. Not a significant amount of increase, especially given that it's 108 acres in size. So that's generally the overall plan. We did receive the site plan review from the fire department, and I'll be happy to go through that. And we also received the letter from Fuss and O'Neill, and I can go through that too. But before I get into those two documents, maybe if you have any questions at this point, it might be a good time to just go through those questions.
Does the board prefer to let Bert continue with the fire department letter and the Fuss and O'Neill letter, or do we have questions now? I think we should let him continue to present.
I agree.
Okay.
Don, can I make one comment, which may be of significance? Part of the Fuss and O'Neill review, there was a question as to whether a special permit for lower impact development would be required. And as you know, the plans are presented, it may be important to maybe discuss that up front, because you put another, kind of concept in your head when you're looking through the plans and they're explained to you of, the things you look for. So I don't know, Bert, if you had a chance to fully go through the Fuss and O'Neill comments, but one of the comments was that the area of disturbance triggers the threshold, is beyond over the threshold of 1 acre, which triggers low impact development special permit. So
right, I did have a chance to look at the Fuss and O'Neill. We actually prepared an area of disturbance exhibit plan. I don't think you got that when we submitted the site plans, although that was generated back on April 24th. It went in with the stormwater permit application. So we do have a drawing that delineates the entire project, and the total area of disturbance is 39,721. So
okay,
it's just under that. But I mean, that's something that I can show to you. I can email to you. I could email it to you right now if you want.
yeah, we'll have to clarify it because it's important,
Yeah.
because it's a separate permit if it is required.
Yep.
It's my understanding in conversation with Fuss and O'Neill that they calculated from measuring off the plans 47,000 square feet of disturbance, and an acre is 43,560. So we'll need to come to terms with that because it does make a big difference. And also to point out that during the conservation's review for stormwater management permit, the hydraulic, the stormwater calculations were not reviewed by Fuss and O'Neill They were reviewed by Commission member Ben Smith, who's a professional engineer. Part of Fuss and O'Neill's response was, do we fully review the plan, the stormwater report calculations in a lid sense or not? And I told them to review them in engineering standard, but not in complete stormwater policy compliance. So that if your lid is not required, we weren't spending that money on that review if it's not necessary. So we'll have, it's important to determine if a lid is required or not.
Correct. Actually, Ben had some good questions too. So that makes sense. I didn't know that he was a PE, but that makes sense based on what he had to. So anyways, let's, I'll work through the Fuss and O'Neill letter. Of course, what we will end up doing is resubmitting a response letter to the Fuss and O'Neill letter. And I will ask if I can get the Word document just so that I have all of those items on there, and then I can respond to each item individually with how the plans have either been revised or any type of discussion point. And I think, as far as any discussions, I don't know if we need to do that through maybe through you, Karina, through emails or paperwork, or if there's any way where there can be some direct communication, and maybe even you being part of that conversation would be good, just to be able to flesh out anything, with a two-way conversation rather than just passing information back on letters and emails.
Yeah, sure, that works. It's good to, we all hear it at the same time, Fuss and O'Neill, and if I'm involved in the calls or the emails, that way we can, like you said, flesh out make sure we get the answers and the responses and any new questions, help resolve it faster.
Sure. Okay, so
if I could just ask the board, there's 29 items in the Fuss and O'Neill letter. Does the board want to go through these tonight, or as Bert suggested, and as we've seen in other site plans, when some of these technical engineering items are resolved between the two engineers, then we get into what's left after that, decision points like do we think that a lid is required and so on. So does the board want to go through the 29 items tonight, or?
I don't think we need to do that. Do not.
Anyone else?
I just had a couple questions about the Fuss and O'Neill, but I think we can wait until there's an actual response and then address it at another meeting.
So why don't we do that, Bert? We'll not get into that level of detail into each of the 29 items. Maybe I'll just open it up to the board. I think we've all read the Fuss and O'Neill letter, even though we just got it, I think, this morning. But and just open up the questions and see where that takes us. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Is that Mr. Mills?
Yes. Well, first is Bob and team, are they done with their presentation?
Yes, believe we are at this point. We're open for questions.
yeah, although I would just like to clarify that I wasn't really intending on going through each and every line item in the letter. I was thinking that the response letter would be more appropriate, so that ultimately we get a clean letter back from Fuss and O'Neill saying that we've addressed all the items, so that we could share that with you. But they did have some good points in there, and as Karina mentioned, it does bring up a discussion point about the lower impact development. They also had a couple of other good points in there too, but I'll leave it alone. I would like to say too that I did review a fire truck turning exhibit plan with Lieutenant Dano, as well as go through the site plan review letter that was produced from them. And there's actually two things that we would like to do to the plans that he's requesting. And one of them is to put in a no parking sign, and the other one is to put in a sign that says number 7 Chestnut and number 9 Chestnut Hill Road. Otherwise, we're all set with the Southborough Fire Department.
Bert,
Go
are
ahead,
those
Ed.
turning radius drawings something you can provide us for our file?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Andrew?
Yeah, so, Bert and Bob, can you just show me on the map, like the buildings where visitors without coronavirus in place and everything, where you see that they would congregate, for the most part?
Well,
I get the barn is gonna be one, but also where they pick up, the pickup for vegetables and meats and everything now.
that's right.
That's the other building right across from it, correct?
That's correct. That is correct.
And
So-
can you show me, sorry?
So obviously there's a lot of foot traffic in for the CSA pickup as well as sort of the farm stand that's open to everyone. And we're hoping to also have this sort of space between there where there's currently asphalt, but creating sort of a courtyard space between those two buildings. The restrooms would be open to the general public at all times. So anyone coming, any families coming to pick up their pickup can also spend some time congregating or just enjoying the site. So I guess it depends on the activities of the day, whether there's an actual pickup, whether it's simply retail sales, or if there's a program.
So are you gonna remove that road that goes down along the existing?
That will no longer be used for by the ag tractors. That will be pedestrian only.
I'm thinking to the south.
Pardon me? I'm sorry. Oh, further down.
Well, no. Yeah, right there.
This is the main driveway coming into the site today.
So, and I'll cut right to the chase, right? It looks like there's a very long distance from the new barn to the handicap spots or the ADA compliance spots. And where the existing building is, where people go to pick up meats and vegetables and everything too. It just seems like a very long distance for someone who has a struggles to get up there to go. Personally, I think it would be great to see a couple of parking spots closer to those two buildings for ADA. So I don't know, it doesn't look like there's anything currently there or planned to be right near the buildings, but ideally something in that area would probably be great. The other thing for the proposed barn, again, I know I saw the plans and everything. We didn't go through it for anyone else who's watching, but you know, it shows tables in there. There's no proposal to actually have animals living in the barn, correct?
That's correct.
So would that be okay to be a condition of the permit? That no animals would be housed in the barn?
We're fine with that condition.
Although there might be some animals being served in the barn. Yeah, as part of a
I mean,
meal.
living, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
that when the original property got approved and everything, I think there were some specific restrictions, as I recall, on what type of animals could be on the property, what you know, how many additional buildings could be added and things like that. So just, you know, in keeping in line with that, if the proposal for this quote barn, right, because it is a barn, is that it's going to be used for, you know, hosting events for people and interaction, but not actually housing animals in there.
Mhm.
I think it would be good to be clear on that with the approvals.
If I may, this is Mike Francis, Stewardship Manager at the farm with the trustees. To the 2 points that Andrew's brought up, the accessibility, you know, we did look at a couple of options. We currently at times are able to accommodate someone with an accessibility need in the what we would call like the back of house maintenance entrance, in part because we don't, you know, currently have a suitable path to really accommodate that. But what we're really looking to do is to separate the two components of the farm. The back of house maintenance equipment area from the visitor interface. The area that the place that they arrive, they park, and they walk up. I believe Bert can kind of confirm the distance here, but I believe that this distance and of course the grade, the 5% slope does meet the accessibility guidelines. Bert, I'm not sure if we have a distance both on.
No, I can get a distance. It is less than 5%. So as far as an accessible route, it does meet that.
Mhm.
Let me just.
But we certainly want to be sensitive to the needs of all of our visitors to the farm as well. So we maintain a close relationship with our guests, and certainly look to accommodate any additional special needs as well. Also to your second point about animals in the barn here, it's really not our intention by any means to use this, as a livestock barn. But I just would like to make the point that there may be a program, a kids class or something where, we may bring an animal, be it like a small bunny, a chicken or something, into that barn, but it's not meant to house animals, feed animals, leave them there overnight, etc.
And that's what I would be looking for. I understand that you probably bring animals in for, it's raining out or whatever program you bring them in for a couple hours, kids get to hold them or whatever, or even they get fed there for a brief period. But they're not going to be bred and kept there on a regular basis overnight for, living in the barn.
Correct.
About 190 feet, approximately.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's in compliance with ADA and everything, but if you think from a practicality standpoint, if you have a pathway or a driveway near it and everything, I think it would just be best for someone who does have issues walking that we get it as close as possible.
We can
Those are my comments for now, Mr. Chairman.
And I think you were about to say that you're going to take a look at that.
That's correct.
Okay. Anyone else on the board? Questions or comments?
I had a quick question regarding parking. So how many parking spots are there currently on the site?
There are 22 spaces that meet the Southborough dimensional requirements in the 2 gravel parking areas. So the closest one that you see is 11 today, and it'll be 11 tomorrow. The one further to the north at the trailhead, we can only fit 11 cars in there that meet the dimensional requirements. By making it wider and a little bit longer, we can fit 24. That brings us up to the 35 parking spaces. And then there's 6 spaces on the the main entrance coming into 7 and 9.
Right, so 22 currently, and how many are proposed?
There's 22 plus there's some ad hoc parking into this area here. We're proposing 41 in total. So we've got 11 at the first parking area. We'd have 24 at the most northerly parking area. So that brings us to 35. And then we would stripe the 3 parallel parking spaces along the edge of pavement here. And then we're also proposing to cut a small amount of this landscape area to put 3 spaces here. These primarily would be used by the employees of the farm.
So you're going from 22 to 41.
That's correct. Although, like I said, there's some parking in here that might be a little bit haphazard today. They're not striped today, so I think people do park along here, and they park right at the edge of this grass area. So I can't tell you that there's existing 6 spaces there, but there's enough for 6 spaces. So, you know, I would say that we're starting with 28 and we're going to 41.
Okay. It did strike me when I was looking at the plans as a significant increase in parking. And you had said you went through this stuff with Conservation Commission and that they were satisfied that it was in compliance with the conservation restriction. But I don't know, I just thought I would raise it as a point of concern for the next meeting, is to, you know, maybe just address why we're adding so much parking to the site.
That's based on your zoning, actually. The zoning requirements require, there's 12 tables, 8 people per table. So there's 96 occupants that could be sitting down at a meal in the barn. And the zoning requires 1 space for every 3 of those occupants. So that brings us up to 32. And then there's employee parking. And then which requires 3 spaces. And then as part of there's a retail barn. Which one am I going here? Yeah, wait for 1 second. This barn right here, as part of an operation where you go in and you buy your vegetables, being retail, that requires 6 additional spaces because of the square footage of that barn. So the zoning requires us to go to 41.
If I may add to that as well, the Trailhead parking lot, the northern parking lot, currently about up to 20 vehicles park in that lot, just not kind of dimensionally, right? Not meeting the dimensional requirements of
Right.
what parking spaces should be. So essentially, we fit about 20 cars in there, and this would bring it into compliance to make sure that the cars have the adequate spacing.
Bert and Mike, if I may, do the overflow parking spaces, that's not included in your 41 spaces, right?
That's correct.
Anyone else, questions or comments?
I have questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Littrell.
The first one is, when did Fuss and O'Neill receive the plans?
They received them, hold on. Give me 1 second. On June 24th.
And were they open then?
They are working remotely as well.
Oh, okay.
They are not back to their offices yet.
It just would be more efficient if we received their comments earlier so the proponent could get them earlier and have their responses set for the meeting.
Yeah, we always strive to do that. It's a tough schedule for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
especially in these conditions.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
My next question is, do we have written confirmation for the Conservation Commission that as the holders of the CR that this project meets the requirements of the conservation restriction, just for our records? I know they approved the stormwater and that would be assumed, but I would feel better if we had that written confirmation for our records.
Are you asking me, Mimi, or are you asking the applicant?
Well, I guess I'm asking you.
Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I also wanted to point out that the parking area at the trailhead, there is the town of Southwell has an easement on that lot for parking. And the deed reference on the plan, I believe, and Bert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, goes back to the conservation restriction document. So there's some language related to that But yes, we can definitely request from Conservation Commission to provide some feedback in a letter format or a memo indicating that they are on board with the project as far as the conservation restriction is concerned.
Okay.
Yeah, Bob might already have that too. I'm not sure. I can't speak for Bob. Bob, do you have a document like that from Conservation? I know you met with them early on.
We met with him last fall, and this question did come up at the on Thursday's meeting, and Melissa was going to look back in the minutes to document that that was in fact approved by the Conservation Commission. We had provided them a new spreadsheet and accounting of the square footage, and had provided the overall plan for them. So we can certainly work with Melissa in Conservation to try to see that reflected in their minutes and share that as a record.
And I did see a copy of that, I think sometime last year, those calculations that are required when anything changes on the farm related to the conservation restriction. I'm just not sure if it included the slightly expanded trail parking lot in addition to, you know, the walkway from the smaller lot that's proposed for the barn reconstruction. So Melissa keeps very good records. We'll try and touch base with her. We will touch base with her.
Okay. My next questions, were there some notes on the plans that concern me that the plan should be considered conceptual and the intent is for permitting only and shall not be used for construction purposes? My understanding is the site plan is what we approve is what should be built, and that it should be a definitive plan and not a conceptual plan. And there was the same disclaimer on lighting that it was not intended for construction.
Yeah, first off, I'll answer the question with regards to the site plan. That's a standard note that seems to raise issues all the time. I'm at the point where I don't want to even put that on the plans anymore. Essentially what that means is when we're doing larger projects, there's a permitting set, but then we end up going through, once we're past design development, we get into actual construction documents. And it's the construction documents that are built or off of the permit set that have even more detail on them so that a contractor knows exactly what he's going to be building. That typically gets submitted into the building department. And then that gives them at least one last look at between what was submitted as a construction drawing to the permit set. But I will take that note off. I don't have an issue with that at all.
Okay, good. That would make me feel better.
Yep.
My next question, so Fussin O'Neill had some questions on lighting, and I was equally confused by what the fixtures were and how many lumens, and so I'll wait for the answers on that. But I will say that the parking lot lights are 20 feet tall.
12 feet tall.
Hmm?
I believe the plan is for 12 feet tall.
Yeah, we show on our plan that they're 15.
So, well, on the lighting plan, well, so I'll wait for the answers then. So there's confusion there because on the description, it said 20 feet and it's not a Walmart parking lot. It's surrounded by open space. So we should be cognizant of the wildlife. And how many trees are going to be removed?
In terms of the apple trees, we've sort of shifted the whole building site to save the chestnut trees that are present on site. But I think there's 4 to 5 apple trees that would be removed.
Okay. Can it be shown on the plan that the chestnut trees are going to be preserved and which apple trees are going to be removed?
Sure. We can highlight that so that it's seen in the plan.
And I was also concerned about the long distance from the handicap parking lot. and whether a wheelchair could maneuver that gravel walk.
We, the specs that we've used at other sites and other municipalities been 3/8 minus hard pack, which has been used in to meet ADA compliance.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, Marnie Houlihan.
Mrs. Houlihan.
Yeah, so I would say that my fellow planning board members covered most of the bases. I did have a question on the landscaping plan, and I saw there was going to be a request for without a landscaping plan. But to Mimi's same point about understanding about what trees would be removed, there's obviously will be disturbance on the property, and I think having some understanding of what the intent will be. I think it's hard to suggest a waiver without really understanding with clarity what's happening to the area and what the disturbance would be. And I really couldn't call that out with the existing paperwork that we had been provided.
Fair enough. We can certainly provide greater clarity on that.
Thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? I had a
Don,
couple.
can I add one thing just real
Yeah.
quickly?
Yeah,
It
go
might
ahead.
make a difference. One of the things was the zone that the project is in. I believe it's the Scientific Research and Professional Operations Zoning District. Is that correct, Bert?
That's correct.
All right, and there was just concern that what the barn will actually be used for, if it's going to, just be aware that there was a question. And I would guess that the planning board might condition the uses there to make sure that they fall within the district allowed uses. That's all I had. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't missed.
Thank you. I just had a couple of, I think, comments. I think Fuss and O'Neill pointed out that the parking areas by code should be paved. But said that it's up to the board to waive that. And I would certainly be in favor of waiving and keeping all of the parking lots gravel and minimize the amount of impervious and paved areas throughout. I'm also in favor of reduced or very much reduced landscaping in order to, as the letter says, the farm look, the open fields, and the look of a farm rather than of a landscaped facility. And I may have missed this, but was there any information provided relative to the current number of car trips that the facility, that the operations there generate per day, and what the projected car trips would be?
I don't believe we captured that, any data on that.
I think when you come back, we'd like to get a feel for that. As you know, the other end of the street, there's houses being built in the former cornfield at the corner there. And the way the traffic is meant to flow in and out of there will certainly add car trips to the road, and then those should be factored in just to get an understanding of how much of a change in vehicle traffic there will be on that road, and be able to think that it's okay or realize that something has to be changed. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have one more.
Mr. Mills.
So Bert, can you go back to where the existing barn is that's going to be raised? I think there's a note on that saying for overflow parking on one of the pages. Is that right?
You talking about this one right here? Mike, can you see the screen?
It was a different.
Are you,
Go
oh,
to
the
a
goat
different
barn?
page.
Talking about the goat barn?
Yeah. And it says all alternative employee parking, 9 spaces. My only concern is if you're really gonna do that, I think you should have how you're gonna get the cars over there and what the line should be and everything. Correct me if I'm wrong, Karina, but I don't know how you're gonna have parking if there's no way to get there.
Yeah, it appears that there's an existing edge of pavement that leads down to the northeast corner, but it's not defined as an area of disturbance or if it's going to be improved in order, and there's no parking spaces defined size-wise. Well, they are described 9.5 by 18. But it doesn't show any striping for an aisle or
No.
how
Yeah.
they're configured.
That was just a thought moving forward, if we ever had to, you know, based on our discussions, if we ever had to move any parking down in that area, you know, we would look at it at that time. I think we could probably take that note off.
Yeah, I'd probably be in favor of that. That was it. Thank you.
Anything else? Is there anyone from the public that would like to have a question or a comment? Do we have anyone from the public, Sarah?
I don't see anyone from the public here for this particular public hearing.
Currently, I just point out that it's John Wood, Peter Bemis, and Sam Stivers is in the attendee list. And you can just check the chat real quick if any of them have asked to comment.
I don't see any raised hands or any chat at the moment.
Okay.
Seeing none, I think we covered a lot of ground tonight, made some good progress, and seem to be all kind of moving in the same direction to make this a better plan, a better project. So I guess it would be appropriate at this time to continue the public hearing to a future date. Karina, would it be August 10th at 7:05?
August 10th at 7:05.
Yeah, actually, on the lid, let's go back to that because that's a separate public hearing that hasn't been advertised. So, and I believe we heard a commitment that the two engineers will huddle up and either agree on the that trigger point of 1 acre, whether it's less than that and no lid is required, or if it's more than that and a waiver is required. And from my point of view, when I was looking at this, I felt that if it was close, I mean, if it's a few hundred or a few thousand square feet over the acre, based on the nature of this site, which is wide open, I just feel that a permit for the lid, obviously, if it's under the acre, then, you know, set. If it's a little bit over, I would lean toward waiving that requirement. I'm not sure about the rest of the board, if the board wants to comment on that, but yeah, it's possible that if a lid is required, then we'd have to advertise a public hearing for that special permit and then hold a separate hearing as we do for all lid special permits.
I'd be in favor of what you just said, Mr. Chairman, under those conditions.
So let's hope that the lid is not required. If it is, then we'll see where that takes us. But for now, we have this public hearing to continue to 7:05 on August 10th, Karina?
That's correct.
Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, I might make a motion, we continue the public hearing for Chestnut Hill Farm Barn, August 10th, at 7:05 PM.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay, we'll see you on August 10th.
All right,
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Karina, next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is an A&R for 145 and 153 Middle Road, prepared by Peter Bemis and his company. Give us a second to just pull that A&R plan up on the screen. Sarah, you think it will work? Can't hear you.
I hope so.
Okay. And while she's doing that, I'll give a quick update on that.
See, Peter has joined us. Good evening, Peter. Have to unmute.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Welcome. Karina, you're on.
Okay. All right, so about a week and a half ago, Peter Bemis provided an A&R plan for 145, 153, Middle Road. And he met with me and we discussed a few revisions, which he then made and submitted a formal application, which was filed with the town clerk with a decision due date 21 days would be July 28th. We can let Peter Bemis explain his plan if he's upgraded to a panelist, Sarah.
He's all set.
All right. Peter,
Okay,
are you
great.
All set.
available?
Are you all set, Karina?
I am.
Okay, Peter, you're on.
All right, thank you, Karina. So this
Welcome.
basically is three properties. One is a parcel, which is Daniel Faniff's. That is located furthest to the south or the left of the plan along Middle Road. Then it's the 153 Middle Road Realty Trust. That was land formerly of Stanley Tannenholz, and land to the north, which is Ian and Andrea DeReese. So basically these parcels are being reconfigured. 153 Middle Road Realty Trust has actually acquired the land of Mr. Faniff this past week. But you see that we're creating 4 independent lots that are all 1 acre or more with more than 150 feet of frontage on each lot. So complying with both the frontage and area requirements for land division. The wetlands are located to the south. That is the old trolley line that used to run right along Route 9 going east and west. And the barn on the Tannenholz property, actually the lot line goes through it for lots 1 and 2. 153 house would be raised. The Historical Commission has reviewed that and already approved that demolition. Then 145 is shown to the north. That's the residence of Ian and Andrea DeReese, and that is going to be retained. And then you can see the leaching area is the furthest feature north. After you leave this property, you would go to the long Cadillac dealership to give you further orientation on where we are. To the west would be the land division that you recently entertained. That was Leeds Way by Bartolini Builders. And then again, east would be Middle Road. Plan notes, you see each lot is listed with its area and its frontage. Plan references are there. The 3 property owners' books, pages, deeds, their but assessor's map and parcel numbers are listed. And our zoning district is Res A, and that's listed at the top of the sheet. Endorsement block is on the right, and you don't make any zoning determinations with the plan. Building department does that. Be happy to answer any questions.
I'd also just like to quickly point out that name of the applicant is 153 Middle Road Realty Trust. All 3 owners of the property signed the application, and we received a trustee certificate that the person signing for the Realty Trust is authorized to do so, which was also filed with the application to the town clerk. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, when I went through those documents, it was a lot more than we usually see in order to follow who owns the land and so on. But with with all those references and the trustee certificate, it does seem to be complete, at least from my review. And you feel the same way, Karina?
I do. I also reviewed the plan thoroughly along with Peter Bemis. And just want to point out also that Peter Bemis is representing engineering design consultants who prepared the plan for recording secretary's benefit. Yeah, I reviewed it and it appears to be in order to the best of my knowledge.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I'm here.
No questions.
I'm all set.
No questions.
Very good. Mr. Mills,
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve the A&R request for 145 and 153 Middle Road. I guess it's Middle Road Realty Trust. As requested
Second.
by,
motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Peter, this is not a dream. This is real. You actually, just a few minutes. It's great.
No, thank you very much. But I have to ask, I have to know what Mr. Mills is, or he's got one hell of a good picture behind him.
Just a picture, just a picture.
Just a picture. Well, that is one nice picture. I haven't seen the waves move. That's why I was wondering where you were. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. all.
You too, Peter. See you later.
Thanks, Peter.
Next item on the agenda, Karina.
Hold on. I lost my agenda. Give me 1 second. Next item on the agenda is, here it is. Sorry, I filed it.
Oh, let's go back to the A&R. We just voted to approve that. So how are we going to sign it? The same way we did the last one?
Yes,
There was a mix of delivery and I think I signed it at the picnic table. The
I'm
last
happy to
one.
bring it around to whoever, you know, needs it to be brought to their house
I'll come in.
or prefers.
Are you in tomorrow?
I am.
I can
we just
come.
have to have a chance to prepare the, it's a simple form, the endorsement form that signs along with the plan getting signed. So once we have that done, we can do that pretty quickly. And Sarah, you can coordinate
Yeah.
everything that comes.
So each board member will probably give you a call to arrange a time to go outside the town hall and sign it
Sounds good.
between thunderstorms. Okay, Karina, sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item for the EDC Village Mixed Use District, known as VMUD bylaw status. And the panelists who are here are John Wood, who is chair of the EDC, and also we have Sam Stivers listed here as attendees. So John Wood has been, yeah.
Sam would also be introduced as a selectman.
Yes, and Sam Stivers as a selectman. We need to find out if Sam wants to be elevated as a panelist, if he has input.
Wow, I have lousy lighting here, sorry.
I don't see a request, and he hasn't raised his hand, right?
I can send him a chat. He said he's only here as an attendee in the chat.
Oh, well, thank you, Sam. We appreciate that. Okay. So, Sarah, would you like to update the planning board on the status of what we've received from the EDC?
We have received a third revision of the proposed zoning overlay which was distributed to the board for review. And that's,
And you have that, it's, you should have had access to seeing that.
Yes.
If you haven't had that, let us know and we can email it to you directly. It was a version 2 back at the end of June, right, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe the EDC's chair, John Wood, if he's interested in adding any additional information under this discussion item, because I know he's on for the next item as well. John?
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if I spoke a little bit? I don't have a whole lot of information. I wasn't really prepared to speak or answer questions on this, but I can tell you what I do know.
Good
if
evening,
that's okay.
John.
Good
Good
evening.
to have you.
John Wood, Vice Chair, Acting Chair right now of the
Okay.
EDC 10 Gilmore Road. I do know that this is the third version that went out on the 10th to everybody. This is one we're hoping to get some feedback for. The third version incorporates some of the feedback we've gotten from some of the other boards and committees, like open space and different things that we put into this. What else?
John, you had mentioned to me that this was a kind of a preliminary draft.
Exactly.
It may
This
be
is-
going
this
to a
isn't for your draft
consultant.
review. We're talking about, per our attorney, they suggested that we might want to go to an outside planner to have review on that. So we're putting together a real quick RFP for that, scaled down to go out hopefully soon. But if you guys, what would ideally like on this is if you guys could take a look at this and see if there's anything you hate, you like, you don't like, and just shoot us your questions on an email in writing so we can send that off to the consultant and the attorney for them to look at and go from there. But that's pretty much all I have on this. Do you have any specific questions? Maybe I can answer. I'm not going to pretend that I'm really up to date on this. And
So this is still a preliminary draft.
exactly. Exactly.
could go
'Cause
through
what are you
several
guys
changes.
scheduling your draft reviews? That going to be on your August meeting? I'm assuming like August 10th around there.
That's our next meeting, yeah.
So
But
by
it
then I
sounds like
should have a,
you've asked us to do some homework and submit any questions or comments, which we would do through the town planner and send them on to you, if that's what
that
you
would be
want.
wonderful. That's what we're asking. Yes.
Is that, is the board okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Hopefully, well before the August 10th, maybe we'll set ourselves a deadline for that submittal to the town planner. What do you think, a week, 10 days?
Sarah, if you have any suggestions as a time frame, the planning board could respond to you.
yeah, I think, you know, a week or two. And if everybody wants to send their comments and questions to me, I can kind of aggregate those together so that they all go off to Marika and the EDC as one kind of cohesive set of feedback.
Okay, and these would be questions or comments,
Yes, please.
or even recommendations. Okay,
Yes, please.
okay. Anything else on this? Okay, let's move on to the next item.
Next item on the agenda is discussion with EDC regarding membership. And it's my understanding that the EDC is trying to reformat the number of members on their Economic Development Committee. So maybe John wants to elaborate.
I would. And I apologize for looking behind me. My dogs have been quiet the whole time I've been at this meeting. And now that I'm actually unmuted, I'm sure they're going to go crazy. And I apologize because one keeps looking at me. So I apologize for that. So in a nutshell, last month, at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, I had asked if they could change our committee size to 7 from 9 members because we're having problems getting a quorum. So they dropped it down to 7 for us. From the 9. We have 6 members currently after Ms. Bartolini stepped down, which is a big loss. So I had asked them if for a future consideration, I'd like to go back to a 9-member committee. And ideally, initially, I thought I wanted somebody from advisory Board of Selectmen as well as somebody from the planning board to would have more of a collaborative effort moving forward. We're losing business to the towns around us on Route 9 and different things, and it would be great to have you guys' expertise on there. I asked to table the discussion. I said, for future consideration, because I hadn't spoke with anybody from planning as of yet to see if you guys even had an appetite for doing that. But most of the successful community development, economic development, or viable towns around us, even in the state, they all have the one thing in common, not all, but most had somebody from planning involved. The others had usually somebody from town administrator, assistant town administrator, town manager, somebody from board of selectmen as well, because they want to talk to the movers and shakers. So ideally, I'd love to get back up to a 9-member board. I'd love to have the expertise of somebody from planning right there and then at our meetings. So if somebody comes in and complains that, oh, permitting is too slow, it takes this and that. Like I know I've spoken with Sarah in the past. She's like, yeah, they'll say it's slow because they come in unprepared. They don't have this, they don't have that. It would be great to say, wow, this is what you needed. We can educate them and help them be more prepared for your meetings, which should hopefully help you guys up. Well, I'm not looking for, to say, the town planner to do more heavy work for us or anything like that. I'm just looking for a voice from planning at the meetings with us consistently. So ideally, personally, I would love it to be a voting member, somebody from the planning board, because you're town residents. And that's why I wanted a selectman as well, because they could be a voting member. I didn't discuss that in length with the selectmen. I have to put that all together, but I just wanted to get your feedback if it's something that anybody would be interested in. If you say no, John, pound sand. But I just think if we could make a more collaborative effort with planning, other committees, the board of selectmen, management, maybe we could draw in more revenue, especially with the outlook of next year and the year after that and the year after that in this town. So
John, could you elaborate on advisory? You mentioned that advisory.
Advisory, I wanted to have an advisory member, but I can't because they're only allowed to be on one ad hoc committee apiece. And this is a formed committee that's appointed by the selectmen. So I can't have an advisory person. I don't know if I could have like a liaison, if that counts, but they couldn't be an official member. So advisory.
And has the board of selectmen assigned anybody?
I haven't even approached them to do that yet, because without what I'm going to do at a future meeting with board of selectmen is I'm going to write up ideally how I'd like to be. So I want to talk to you, see if there was an appetite with anybody in planning, whether they'd want to be a voting member, non-voting member, whatever I can take from that. So I'm just humbly here asking for you guys' help.
And would that have to go to town meeting?
Yes, I believe it would have to go to special town. Well, ideally, I'd like to have this proposed for the special town meeting in the fall. But I'm pretty sure that dropping what maybe Sam could help me if I'm wrong on this, but dropping down was something they could do because the board is it's up to 9 members, but I don't know if they can. I'm pretty sure because the bylaw needs to be through town meeting to be approved to have people from other boards on it and to be rewritten as 7 members plus a board of selectmen members plus planning member or blah, blah, blah. So I'm pretty sure it would have to be voted on at town meeting. And I think it's just a majority vote for that. I don't believe it's a 3/4 vote. I could be wrong.
Thank you.
John, there's concern. I think you're, based on your experience with other towns, saying that planning, at least from our point of view, planning plays either an official role or at least an appearance role in the EDC. My concern is the planning board members, it's my opinion, should not be necessarily advocating for another board in this way. And I'm thinking that there are people, economic development people in town, who want more horsepower in that economic development. But there are other people who want more horsepower in open space or in recreation or in other things. So I'm sure that there's a way to have us participate more, but I'm not sure if it will work to have a planning board member be also a member on economic development. And it's because it would show that, or it could show that the planning board or that board member is advocating for more economic development, which may then be perceived as not supporting open space, not supporting what we always hear, which is if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels, or how, like you said, town meeting, how this would be accomplished. But I just know that if we start to have members on other boards, it's going to create, I think, situations where there'll be a conflict. Anybody else with an opinion on that?
I agree with you, Don. And also, John, unfortunately, I just don't have the bandwidth as well. So I'd be out either way.
So I actually think it would be a good idea because as Mr. Wood said, it's so often at EDC meetings, he's getting feedback about the planning board and questions that are directly related to planning. I mean, if, you know, professionally, I wasn't in the middle of kind of a huge boom in the business I'm in, I would actually consider volunteering for that, but I can't do it. As Mr. Mills just said for himself, I definitely don't have the bandwidth to take on a third board because I'm on SHOPSI as well. But I see, you know, my representation on SHOPSI most of the time just serves as an informational representation of planning processes and working with Karina and Sarah on SHOPSI stuff in a way that I think would also be sort of beneficial for the EDC. So
I agree.
Unlike Mr. Mills and Mr. Morris, I actually think Mr. Wood has a really good idea in having a planning board representative on EDC, but it can't be me. Sorry.
That's a great idea, but not for me. Anyone else?
I'll comment. So I think, so my fear is that it would be perceived as a conflict of interest. But I think if there was a discrete role and responsibility of an informational only role, like a non-voting could provide information on, you know.
I'd be fine with ex officio. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I think that would be, you know, I do think from an informational perspective, I think it would be helpful. But I too can't volunteer.
Sounds like you might. Sounds like you might be getting a staff member.
I was trying. I'd be great with that as well, but I know the bandwidth of your staff members is limited as well. So I'm trying not to overburden your town planner or assistant town planner either. But that would be great. I'll schedule my meetings around whatever works for anybody, so they could be there. The more information and the more collaborative I could possibly make this, the happier and the better it'll work. Just before the COVID hit, I had been reaching out to different towns and areas that were similar size, different things like this, to find out how they're set up for their, you know, whether you want to call it economic development, you want to call it community development. However, some of them call one something, some of them call other things. Then the world kind of turned around and I didn't get a whole lot of responses. So I'll try to reach out more and find out more how other places are set up and give you specifics if you have questions on other towns like Grafton or Westboro or Northborough or Ashland or even Framingham, Marlborough, any town, Berlin. I'll find out what you want and see how they're set up, and you can say, yeah, they seem to be working. I'll do whatever.
I have an idea, John. What about kind of thinking about a reverse corollary on this? Kind kind of like the master plan does in a sense, where the EDC formulates maybe some things that they want to present and then have questions and feedback, and they send a representative from EDC to the planning board meetings. Because we're having, from the last planning board meeting moving forward, we're carrying this as a discussion item until we open the public hearings for the fall town meeting, whenever that will be. So do you think that would be a way to
give you
handle
updates,
it?
standing updates on everything I have questions on, like if my more concern is the Route 9 area and trying to get more business and more over than the overlay district personally.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
but that, we have that standing, and that's already great that we can come on and ask.
Oh, you're
them.
saying more broad-based, so like
Yeah.
it could be like initially, the EDC comes in, this is what we're working on and this is the goals we have. And then the planning board could give a, quick discussion and some feedback, and you could get a feel whether it's, a quick roll across, how do you think about this? And then someone could report back to the EDC with that information. So just another way of looking at it.
Yeah. Again, ideally, I was really requesting, I was really hoping I'd have somebody that could make the meetings, have some skin in the game, and really get into it with us, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like there's an appetite for it, and I appreciate taking the time to.
Well, I don't think
have me
it's,
tonight.
just to say, it's not the appetite, I think it's the bandwidth. Planning has been extremely busy too, and with Sarah on board, she's already facilitating meetings, we're trying to cover everything. And it's just, it's kind of straight out. So we're not trying to deflect. We just want to, be able to also provide, what we can, but, it's the bandwidth, that's all.
Oh, I understand. Just like, for instance, I'll just put out something. So outdoor dining, everybody knew it was coming. 2 weeks after other towns are all open for outdoor dining, we have a meeting on, hey, who should be doing this and how should we handle this? We're a day late and a dollar short, which is hurting our local businesses. I mean, we've lost English Flower Garden because they couldn't afford to stay with funerals. There's no this, there's no that. I just hate to see more businesses leave because we've already got a pretty good sized vacancy rate. And I'm still just trying to figure out how I can even get them in. I'm not sure to keep
I think we processed a whole restaurant one pretty quickly. That's the only one I've seen. And over the last
again,
month.
2 weeks after the restaurants are already open. And it's not just you, it was the whole town. It was the other towns.
No, I know. I understand.
Open, and it was like, we've been sending emails saying, hey, who's gonna, just things like that. It would be great if we had a collaborative board, selectmen, planning, everybody involved to try to keep it. That was my pitch. If you guys, it doesn't sound like anybody has the bandwidth again or appetite for it, if anybody did have the bandwidth, and I appreciate your time. I really do.
Some of these restaurants too, I should say, John, I'll talk to Marika too, that what I've noticed is they don't have people who are willing to come back and work in the environment either. You know what I mean? So some may be willing to open, but they can't get the staffing who wants to take the risk, or they've moved on in the interim or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like all these things going on. Strange.
Yeah. Well, I
Got
won't
to
take
get back to normal as much as possible, as soon as possible.
Would be nice.
Also,
anyway.
John,
Yes, sir.
if there's nothing more, then we'll move on to our next agenda item.
So do you want to just so is there a vote on that you just no discussion, no further discussion, no planning board member?
I think what we'll do as a bare minimum would be, when we find out that you're having a meeting, the town planner or Sarah will send out an email to the board members to see on that particular day or night if a member could participate.
Okay, I appreciate that.
If one of us is free as well and can attend a meeting that's held during the work hours, we certainly, I attended them in the beginning, and then the workload just grew and grew and grew. And
I've attended a few as well. So
And Ms. Lachelle has as well.
So we try.
appreciate
We're
it.
trying
Yeah,
to cover them.
Okay, well, thank you. And you guys have a great night. And again, thank you for taking the time.
Sorry, I just have one more comment. I also think just agenda specific. So I think if there's something very specific that you require support on, having that feedback, and I think we had provided that to the crew who came in last year at some point, talking about the downtown development, is just trying to understand when you do need the feedback or the, you know, the cross-functional collaboration, giving us that heads up, because a lot of time I don't know about my other planning board members, but I kind of wait until the last 3 days before our planning board meeting and I cram it all in because I work full time. So it's just trying to figure out if I have an ample heads up, I'm able to kind of address those things. But I think really agenda specific and questions, I think that could be an approach with that clarity of role and responsibility could help. And
All
I
right,
think
so
that I could definitely, try to find time to go to those types of meetings.
all right, well, thank you. Agenda specific, if we could get some feedback or any questions on the third round, that the VMUD 3, whatever you want to call it, within the next couple of weeks, that would be great. So we can pass that along.
Okay.
Other than that, I will keep that in mind.
Very good. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everybody. You guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and hopefully everybody's got AC because I hate this humidity. But anyway, take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your spirit.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Karina, next item on the agenda.
Next on the item on the agenda is we carried the open space inspections for fiscal year 20. If the planning board has any additional comments, having had a further chance to review the report, please provide comments to me individually. The presentation by Lucas Environmental is scheduled for the August 10th meeting. The Open Space Commission, Open Space Preservation Commission has met a couple times and is planning to meet on Wednesday to provide some final comments on the report to planning, which we'll distribute once we get those. And then I'll provide my comments, the comments I've received from the planning board, and Open Space's comments to Lucas Environmental so they can update for a final draft. Get that to us before August 10th so you have a chance to look at the final draft and then do a brief presentation on August 10th. That's the update. So if anyone has questions, you can say now, or you can email me or Sarah.
Okay.
All right. Any?
Next item.
All right. Next item. The next item is discussion item for deed research committee appointments. The planning board would need to reestablish the committee for fiscal year 21, expiring June 30th, 2021. On the committee previously was Mimi Luttrell and Jesse Stein, and at their 2 or 3 meetings ago, the Open Space Preservation Committee voted to recommend Freddie Gillespie as the 3rd member to the deed research committee. And again, it's there's a potential some funding available in CPC to do some finish work or some updating on any new developments, perhaps something along that line, which the committee could work on with planning.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we continue the deed research committee with the members that were attending before. Barney, second.
Jesse,
Jesse's a member, potential
right.
member.
So
We need a
Marnie,
second.
Second.
Motion's been made. Karina, is that what we want? Is that what you expected? This motion?
Yes, I expected that the planning board would make a motion to reestablish or continue the deed research subcommittee for a 1-year term expiring on June 30th, 2021, including the members would be Jesse Stein, Mimi Luttrell from the planning board, and Freddie Gillespie from the Open Space Preservation Commission.
Yeah, I think that's what I said. So moved.
And
roll call.
Marnie, you seconded that?
I did. Second again.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein abstain.
Latrell abstain.
Houlihan, yes.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda.
We have the planner's report, just a couple of quick things to go over. As you know, you may have gotten from alerts through the town e-alert, the state has entered into phase 3, and so has the town, I believe, starting this past Monday, or today, not this past Monday, we are on Monday, July 13th, the reopening of the townhouse via appointments to the public. So a notice went around to the public with contact information for each department. So if you wish to meet with someone at the townhouse or other facilities, I believe that you would make an appointment, and then there's opportunity to enter the building to do business with certain restrictions and social distancing. And we keep a log of who actually comes to our department, that in case there is a potential person who has the virus, that we know who they came to, and we can then follow up with the Board of Health. So that's the update on the town's opening. I want to point out that Main Street reconstruction has started again. If you haven't noticed, at the intersection of 85 and Main Street, and if you go to the DPW website, they usually give a good update. So it commenced on July 6th, and the work will generally move from east to west, starting at Park Street and moving towards Common Street, and will generally consist of lowering structures in the street and then removing asphalt and the road base, then replacing the existing base with new gravel, installing the base layers of pavement, and raising structures. The project is set to be completed November 15th of 2020. Work remaining to be done for the length of this project is installing the granite curb and installing gravel for sidewalks, installing sidewalks and driveway aprons, laying the top course of asphalt, painting, signs, and landscaping. So that's where that stands.
Does the project involve catching fish?
I haven't. Why? Why do you ask?
Look at Andrew.
Oh, hey, that's stealing the show right there. Is that your twin brother behind you on the boat? Very nice.
Next item on the agenda.
Hold on, 2 more things. Mimi Luttrell, you're going to, at tomorrow night's Board of Selectmen's meeting, the Planning Board had recommended you to be the representative for the Metro West Regional Planning, Metro West Regional Collaborative. So tomorrow evening, they're going to officially appoint you to that role. And I think you've already been getting emails along with Marty Healy, who's the other rep from the Board of Selectmen, just so you know. On August 10th, for the Planning Board.
She freeze?
Yes, I think so.
I hope it wasn't my fish picture.
Scared her away.
Applications we're anticipating for that. And then 5 Breakneck Hill Road, Jack Bartolini is hoping to convert a 1-family to 2-family. So part of the ZBA special permit application needs a report from the Planning Board, which will be discussed at August 10th. The open space monitoring report will be on the agenda for presentation and discussion from open space preservation for Stonebrook Village open space sidewalk. Good news, the Conservation Commission accepted the housing production plan. Good work, Sarah. She worked really hard. She attended the meeting, made some revisions, encouraged the revisions. We got feedback from town council, or conservation did, that approved some of the language in that. There will be tentatively, there's a SHOPC meeting at the end of the week that Sarah is managing, after which there'll be, the Board of Selectmen will submit a letter to the DHCD with the updated housing production plan. So that'll be good. And that's all I have for the planner's report.
Did you want to, without getting into detail, mention your meeting that you had with the rec department?
Oh, yes. We had a super productive meeting. Sarah and I
Very good.
attended, with Karen Galligan, Tim Davis, and Arthur Eddy, who's the landscape architect with the consultant firm Traverse Landscape. And he actually asked for the meeting so that we could go through all the review comments I had provided on the prior submission. So it went very well. They're working and moving forward, and we'll see when they submit. We'll review the plans. I think they were hoping for August 10th, but that submission deadline is this Thursday, maybe Friday morning for that meeting. So they've made good progress. So I'm optimistic.
Very good. Any questions or comments on that? Move on to the
Just clarity,
minutes.
that's the lighting, the sports fields lighting.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yes, it's the
Thank you.
upcoming applications for the Mooney Field and the Neary Tennis Court lighting projects.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So now we have the meeting minutes.
The minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the meeting minutes from June 22nd as written.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
If you look at the bottom of the agenda, you will see the deadlines. Can you read those, Karina?
Oh, sure. Decision due deadline. So 7 Chestnut Hill Road Barn for major site plan approval is a 60-day timeframe for decisions. The deadline for that is August 21st, 2020. Our next meeting is August 10th, falls within that timeframe. Then the 145, 153 Middle Road A&R, which has a 21-day timeframe for decision. Deadline was July 28th, 2020, and the planning board voted this evening to endorse that. So we're in good shape for that.
Karina, just if I come in around noon tomorrow, you think you'll have everything ready to go for Middle Road to sign?
Sarah?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Kate,
You're on mute.
Yes, sir.
how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. We didn't talk to you tonight, so wanted to say hello.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I
Another-
wanted to say a big thank you too, and we'll be, Kate and I and Sarah are working on updating Kate's agreement for the fiscal year 21, where she will continue to do the fabulous job she's been doing. It's
You guys are
true.
great.
You're so fortunate.
Very
to-
true. Yes.
Fortunate to have all of you,
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank
and great work all across the board.
Thank you.
Excellent work.
It's because we have a great board.
That's right.
You're here. Motion to
Sincerely.
adjourn.
Mr. Mills,
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor. Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye now.
Hi, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank
Kate.
you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Karina. Thanks, Kate.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.